Welcome, everyone, to SI Media with Jimmy Traina. Thank you for listening. Huge show this week. We have Pat McAfee, who has made a lot of news lately because he is joining ESPN. It was recently announced in the fall, taking his daily Monday through Friday show to ESPN and a couple of their platforms. It'll be on linear TV, ESPN Plus, ESPN YouTube's channel. So get into it with Pat about why he's going to ESPN, why he's leaving his FanDuel contract early, what the process was like to get to ESPN. There's been some backlash from his audience about the show possibly changing and getting sanitized. Pat addresses all that. Will he still be able to have non-ESPN guests? How much ESPN will be involved in the show? Get into all that. Get into Pat's time with the WWE. Get into a little bit of Pat on College Game Day. And just what the show is like, his Aaron Rodgers interviews, all of it covered with McAfee in this interview. No Sal Licata this week, no train of thoughts, a little scheduling issue, but we got Pat for a long time, so works out just fine. Before we get to Pat, if you've missed any recent episodes, make sure you go to the archives and check them out. We had Stone Cold Steve Austin and Richard Deitch on the program last week. 2 weeks ago, we had Mike North, the NFL VP of Broadcast Planning, on putting together the 2023 NFL schedule, along with Dan Rappaport of Barstool Sports on golf. Mike Breen, Ian Rappaport, Rich Eisen have all been on the podcast in recent weeks as well. So if you missed any episodes, go into the archives, check them out. If you've never heard the pod before, subscribe, leave a review on Apple. All right, here we go. 1 hour plus conversation coming up right now with mega sports media star Pat McAfee right here on SI Media with Jimmy Traina. All right, joining me now, this is a big one. We've got one of the biggest stars in the entire sports media world, and he doesn't do a ton of pods, so thrilled for the first time to have Pat McAfee on SI Media with Jimmy Traina. Pat, thanks so much for doing this. What's going on?
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Jimmy. I think there's way too much of me already out there. So I get offered some opportunities to come on podcasts. I try not to do it because there's, just like I said, my voice is heard way too much. And the people that don't like me don't need to hear more of me. And the people that like me already have listened to me enough every single day after my show's done. But with everything that has happened in the modern sports media world with me right now, in the way you have, you've kind of given us a fair shake. It feels like not a lot of media people have through our entire thing. You have. So whenever I was asked to come on this, I genuinely was pumped to do it, and thankful that you're having me on here, Jimmy.
Well, I appreciate that because I do try to be fair. And, I think everyone has things they like and things they don't like. It's kind of funny, too, because I feel like, I don't know if you get this, I'd be curious. I feel like you're way more of a positive person than I am. I feel like you're generally rooting for people. You like people. I mean, I have things people and things I don't like, but it is funny. Like, I always say, like, I hate to use social media as the basis for this, but like, if you go on there and you say you don't like this person or this show or something, people say you're an asshole, you're negative, you're miserable. And then if you go on there and you're like, oh, I love, this person, people are like, oh, you kiss ass. And so like, you can't win no matter what. You can never win. So you can't pay attention to it.
Well, the internet's awesome. The internet is always going to have, its thoughts. The internet is always going to get its jokes in, and the internet's always going to let you know if you're kind of fucking up too, though, which I certainly appreciate. And I've been a diehard Twitter user since basically Twitter's my first social media I dove into. Twitter is still my main source of social media. I think Twitter's the most powerful. I think Twitter's the best. I think you learn the most. It's the quickest. It's most efficient, everything like that. I've been through a couple different iterations of Twitter now with different ownership groups, and Twitter will always survive because in premise it is fantastic, but you have to treat it like a focus group. And I think there was a lot of networks and a lot of places that were potentially changing their entire mindsets and mottos and business plans because of what they were reading on Twitter. It's like, you certainly should take it in as a focus group. If a majority of people are saying something, you should certainly take it into account and maybe address it. But whenever you're talking about a few hundred people being an asshole versus like a few 100,000 people watching or a few million people watching, you kind of got to take it in for what it is. And I think we're becoming a society that understands what Twitter is and what trolls are and what the internet just naturally is, no matter what you do,
Yeah. All right. So since you said all that, we might as well start here because we're sort of on that path. when it came out that you were going to ESPN, I wrote a column. I was surprised by the negative reaction. Now, how much was negative compared to how much was positive? You would know that better than me, but I know you maybe were also taken a little bit aback by it. Now, I have my theory on it, which I'll get into, but tell me just what that experience was for you when it became announced that you were going to ESPN in the fall.
I appreciated you writing that. And I think my guy Ty Schmidt saw it first and sent it in. It was like, hey, here's a guy at least, speaking with some reason and thought. And I understand that everything you do, every decision I do with our show is going to get some drawback, no matter what it is. When I decided to start doing WWE every single week, which has been a lifelong dream of mine, and getting an opportunity to do it has been so cool. And everybody over there I fucking love. I mean, it is the world that I was probably put on this earth to be in. If I could go back and not have a rocket of a leg, I would have been a professional wrestler and hopefully would have been able to make it in WWE a long time ago. And that's just how my life would have been. But whenever I decided that, I am going to try to make my show work and be a part of WWE, there was people that were naturally mad because they thought the show was going to change because I was going to spend some of my attention on the WWE. And at that moment, I was so confused. I'm like, man, this is completely separate from the show. You're like completely different operation. And it was at that moment I realized, like, our show is something that people really enjoy. Our show stinks. Okay. We know that. We understand that. But there's a lot of people that are incredibly cool and incredibly passionate, and they hang out with us every single afternoon. So I think any change I make, I had to learn through trials and errors that there's going to be people that are upset with it because they're scared they're going to lose the thing that they get to hang out with. And I am honored that that is how they view our show. But my big takeaway after this decision is, like, a lot of our people have been with us for a long time. And a lot of decisions I've made, we've been through this a couple different times where it's like, hey, the show is going to remain the show, though. And I would like a little bit more faith almost in the fact that we understand who we are, we understand what we are, and we wouldn't want to change it for anybody because that'd be bad business, and it'd be bad because we can't make a better show. We are a bunch of doofuses that do what we do, and it just so happens to work. So I didn't expect it to be as big of a drawback as it was. I knew that there would be some people, because there's probably new fans of the show and new viewers of the show who hadn't been through some of these types of situations before with our program, but it was big. You're right. And it was positive. There's a lot of people incredibly happy for us. There's a lot of people that were like, excited about what this means for the future of things. And a lot of our people were, hey, next step, next evolution of the show. This is cool. But I did not expect the amount of people that were negative about it before even knowing what it was. And I know that it comes from a place of passion, so I'm honored about it. But it was alarming, Jimmy. It was alarming. I did not expect that many shots to the shins from my own people almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, a few things, because as I wrote, I would have thought your people would have had more faith and trust in you because you have navigated this post-NFL career in a brilliant way. So there should be some trust there. Also, you're not going to take your show and bring it anywhere and have it be changed when it's such a success. What I learned after writing that column, because when I wrote the column, and if someone's listening who doesn't know, Pat, it was announced he was going to ESPN. There was a lot of stuff on social media about, like, the show's going to change. The show's going to change. And sell out. And my column was like, I would have thought Pat's people would have trusted him a little more. What I learned after the column got posted is that I don't think this was about you. I think this was about ESPN. Like, you know how people say there's Trump derangement syndrome? There's ESPN derangement syndrome out there. Because what I got on Twitter was, like, just one example. Someone wrote into me and they go, off my column, ESPN ruins everyone they sign. Now, I usually don't engage with people on Twitter because it's just not worth it. But I cover this for a living, and I was trying to think, like, okay, let me think where this has happened. Couldn't think of anything. So I wrote back to the person. I just said, can you give me one name, two names, just anyone? Just give me someone. And then the person wrote back, of course, didn't have any names and just wrote something about liberal, woke, ESPN, politics, blah, 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 which has nothing to do with your show. So if you want to take any positives of it, I think once you get to ESPN and people see your show's the same, everything will be fine. But I think people are more spooked about ESPN than your show changing, which, again, I've gone through this over the years. The theory that ESPN is covering politics is also nonsense. Like, Scott Van Pelt's not breaking down the Ukraine war. PTI isn't talking about, inflation. Like, it's a little over dramatized, like ESPN and the politics. And I think you got caught up in that. That's my theory.
Yeah, I think so. And obviously how ESPN is viewed by what they choose to focus on and not focus on, I think a lot of people get upset about, because I think sports are naturally a unifier. I think sports are naturally a celebration. So I think there's a lot of people that potentially get scared from like, oh, they're going to all of a sudden start focusing on things like debating things, because I think debates bring a natural divide, right? Because you're obviously debating. So you got to be on one side or on another side. So I think that type of stuff, the decision to talk about things, not every day, but I think politics certainly got its way into ESPN's coverage when the whole world became political. And I think a weapon for us is that I am not smart enough to get into politics. And also nobody is thinking to themselves, hey, you know what? How does Pat McAfee feel about insert actually real thing in the world? So for us, I've always just stayed in the world that we know, the world that we understand. But also I've always viewed sports as a unifier. I've made my best friends in sports. I've had my best moments in sports. I've met people and learned so much about life through sports. So I think people are just scared that ESPN will change the fact that we're no longer celebrating sports. We're more so trying to cut sports down. And that's kind of what I read, to your point, from a lot of the takeaway after I was telling people, like, no, can you have a little bit more faith? Like, we're not going to change. They're like, naturally, it's going to change because you're going to have to start doing this, and you're going to have to start doing top fives, and you have to start debating things, and you have to start picking this goat and this. And it's like automatically all those things potentially drive a little separation, but we're not talented to do that. Like, I'm not talented to stand on a table for something I don't believe in, which is potentially what some sports media has become. For us, it's just like, let's talk. Let's learn about these people. I'm not going to chastise anybody for how they feel, but I feel like the more we learn about these sports stars, the better for the sports media world. So that's all we're trying to do.
Right.
Just enjoy sport.
Well, that's it. So it surprised me that people thought you would move your show and change it. And it also surprised me that people would think that ESPN would want to pay you a lot of money and then change your show. Like, none of it made sense. But I guess maybe these, I'm in the sports media world, so maybe I know it a little better than the average Joe fan, but it wouldn't have made sense from either standpoint to do that. So, but let me give you just some quick, specific questions about the move that I know people have questions about. And one question a lot of people had, your current show on YouTube, you have a lot of non-ESPN people on, Shams, Ian Rappaport, etc. People want to know, will those people still be on your show when it goes to ESPN, or is ESPN going to say, no, you can only have Adam Schefter and Woj?
Yeah, never been told that I can only have ESPN people on my show. That was never even broached by them or by us. Ian is a part of our crew. Like, Ian Rappaport has been a part of our crew for a long time. I do believe that we will certainly develop a relationship with Schefter as well. And why wouldn't we, especially as a show that covers the NFL as we have? But our people will remain our people. That's kind of how the entire thing is set up. But we are very open to meeting and mingling and hopefully putting over ESPN talent that they have on the roster. And that was a big part of why we were going as well, because I got sick of booking the show. I mean, I'm booking the show, text messaging people every single morning. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like doing that. I hate doing that. I feel like I'm impeding on people's time. I'm like, if I was on the other end of this, I would tell this guy, oh yeah, I have nothing else to do but talk about this in the middle of it. So like, us going to their network and all the incredibly talented people they have on staff and on payroll that are ready to come on the program, massive part of going to ESPN. So we are very excited to build relationships with people in the basketball world from ESPN, in the baseball world, in the college lacrosse world, if we start talking about that. Like, they have experts from all fields that we're excited to have, but our people will remain our people as well. We're just trying to make the best possible show as we can.
Will ESPN, you have your crew there, and everyone who listens to your show knows the crew with Ty and Boston Connor, et cetera. Will ESPN have a producer or an executive producer or anyone like that involved in your show, or it's still you and your crew producing the show? Yeah, it's our crew. It's same exact. We hang out in the think tank over here in the morning. It's part of the Thunderdome. And this place is a joke, by the way. Absolutely. People said you couldn't build a media company in the Midwest. We did it in Indiana, and we ended up in an old church called the Thunderdome, which is hilarious. But we basically create the show via our group chat
our group text, and then the think tank in the morning. We don't have blocks. We don't have that type of scheduling. We just have things that have popped up in conversations that have kind of started. Like, oh, that is interesting. Yeah, that is something to talk about. That's fascinating. And then there's a chance it's going to get brought up in the show. So like the guys don't even know what's going to come up in the show. I don't really know what's going to come up in the show, but I do know what has been in our sphere for the last 24 hours or so. And then it kind of just comes and goes. That's why, like, and I guess this is a little bit of a different thing, but other people have done this before. Like, I'm host, pundit, booker, interviewer. So my guys are an asset in my guys are hosts, pundits, bookers, interviewers. Everybody is like 5-tool player around here. So we're the ones creating the show, and then the show just comes as it comes. So the important message for your fans is that's how it's going to be when you go to ESPN.
Couldn't be any other way. Like, right. I don't know if we'd be able to operate any other way. Like, I don't know if Boston Connor and Ty Schmidt would be good with prepared setup takes. This is coming 5 minutes into the show. We got this thing coming. Need you to do this. Need you to do this. It's like, we aren't like that. Like, we are very much freewheeling. Let's get through this, because our natural conversation might go to places we could have never expected in a pre-production meeting. And then if it doesn't, boom, we just go to something else. So same exact show style, show flavor, and show creation every single day.
What we know is the show's going to be on ESPN, ESPN's YouTube channel, ESPN Plus. Any thoughts? Is there about ESPN Radio? A lot of people are wondering why you wouldn't be on ESPN Radio.
Yeah, I don't know. So when we were with Sirius, a lot of good people at Sirius. This was a similar type situation with Sirius, and the payday obviously different. And we're on Mad Dog's channel, which we're the first people to swear on Mad Dog's channel. Everybody before us didn't swear. Everybody after us didn't swear. I don't know if that was necessarily the best fit for us, but was honored to be on Sirius. But we quickly realized that we're almost doing a disservice to the people that only listen. Now, our show is still a podcast. We still make a podcast. We put it out every single day because we understand there's people that can't watch every single show, and we appreciate that. But we want people to know that we're like an optic show, a video show, because I think a lot of that has to feed in to what we're talking about. Now, if ESPN decides and we have a conversation like, hey, you want to go on ESPN Radio or on Sirius XM or anything like that, I think I'd be open to that. I'd be thankful to get back in, the truck drivers' trucks and stuff like that. But it wasn't a focal point of the conversation because it's not really our first thought, if that makes sense.
Got it. Now, you said you had 4 offers.
Yeah.
Would you share who made other offers, or is that private information?
Yeah, never in a million years. But I will say, that Marchand, whenever he was writing about who I was negotiating with every single week, it helped. Like, he helped a lot. So, like, I am very, very thankful.
He gets a finder's fee.
Yeah, I said it at the Disney upfronts, actually, because he announced it 10 minutes before I went on stage, or 20 minutes before I went on stage. It was supposed to be the announcement, and our people kept it tight. Obviously, there's enough people involved. Things are going to get out and everything like that. But he was a pretty big part of it. I mean, a couple different times he said some things like, oh, I think it's getting close here. And then all of a sudden that reignites. Like, it was a fascinating time. I lived life as an executive for like 3 months, a lot of text messages, a lot of emails, a lot of calls, a lot of FaceTimes. How you doing? Lay out plans. What's the future look like for you guys? What's the future look like for us? What are you trying to do? Like, with numerous companies. And I met a lot of incredibly talented people, a lot of good, I think sports media future, really good spot with the people that are currently making decisions. I'm very excited for it. Adding in the streaming services and what they're going to be trying to get in as we go forward, what they're thinking about doing. I think we're all in a good spot going ahead as sports fans. But ultimately, at the end of the day, ESPN was like the perfect fit for us at this time.
Well, that was my next question. So you had 4 offers. You said, why ESPN in terms of making the move?
So 3 of the places, the money was pretty similar. One place way behind. Good people, but way low.
Oh, I'd love to know who the cheapskates were.
They're good people. I don't think they, I was.
It's all right.
I'll tell you what, when you're having these conversations and you know exactly how much your show is worth. So, like, I've done the sales for our show. Like,
I know exactly how our YouTube works, like in the Google AdSense on the back end. I know what deals look like for all buckets of deals. You know, we've been in every single place. I know exactly how much money our show would make if we would remain independent going forward. That's a very vital piece of information whenever you're going in to have conversations about the future of sports media potentially and your thoughts. So whenever somebody says something and you go like, oh, I understand that I want to come to a network because I would like to make my life easier, but I also understand exactly how much money our show can make if we were to remain independent. And that's not going to be something that I can necessarily do. So the market was kind of set, you know, seemed like. Yep. Because of that, me knowing that piece of information. ESPN, though, whenever I talked to Jimmy and I talked to Burke, and other places had similar thoughts, but Jimmy and Burke were very adamant, like very, very adamant about, hey, what do you think the future looks like? This is what we think as well. Like, I think Jimmy's kids are fans of the program. I think Burke's, you know, kids, fans of the program. Like, I think they're very tapped in to what the future looks like. I think Jimmy Pitaro is a great executive, like especially with what he's going through right now, because they could just mail it in, right? They could just mail it in and say, hey, we still have all the league rights. We're still going to get all the streaming numbers for the games because they have rights to every fucking league out there. I mean, they have that above and beyond everybody else. They still have rights and relationships with everybody. They could just say, hey, that's what we're going to spend our money on and we're going to do our thing. Jimmy was very adamant about, hey, we still going to be sports media. You know, we're still going to do this entire thing. And he wanted to hear it. And I wanted to hear his vision as well. So him, Burke, me, kind of chat, a lot of conversations, man. And I told Marshawn this in a DM. It was calls, texts, FaceTimes, emails. I mean, you're naming everything. Even a meeting with Bob Iger, obviously out in Burbank in the middle of this whole thing. Like, it was a lot. And there was a lot of combos. And there was a couple things that were very important to me. And there were some things that were very important to them. And us kind of, it became pretty clear, like, hey, this seems like this is going to really work, especially with the presence that they have that is incomparable real estate in the linear television world. It is like, we're very honored and lucky that the deal ended up being with ESPN.
Did the fact that, and I should have mentioned this earlier, because this should be another reason why your fans should not worry about your show. You already work for ESPN. So did the fact that you did College Game Day this year help you lean towards ESPN?
Yeah, I think so, because I got to meet some of them. But I went into conversation with everybody about what I saw ESPN do for Game Day every Saturday, though. Like, I went in knowing that I wanted to go to a network. I didn't know that I wanted to go to a network. I never wanted to go to a network. Like, I didn't think anybody at any networks got it. I didn't think that there was a chance, like, the things that I would want to do or we would want to do would be okayed by anybody, because basically every television suit that I've ever encountered has been like, nah, a swearing punter from Indiana who's been arrested and wears tank tops. Like, fuck this guy, which is why I represent myself, because I'm a tough sell to a lot of people. That's why, like, agents couldn't
you have no agent, no representation, none at all?
No.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
Thank you.
No publicist?
No.
That's amazing.
Thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate that. Once again, a little respect from people, hopefully, whenever they're judging me immediately. But also, I've made some fuck ups. I have a chance. Like, I have friends that have been very successful in the business that I can text and ask questions like, hey, is it kosher for me to tell this person to go to hell for what they just said? And that person will be like, not yet. You know, those people will calm me down a little bit in the business. But, like, as I watched Game Day weaponize ESPN and all the incredibly talented people that were behind the scenes at Game Day, all the hardworking production people, all the booking people that are there, that, hey, what do you need? How do you need it? What do we have to do? Listening to Jimmy Guerrero and Drew Gallagher and Reese Davis and Dez and obviously Pollock and Herbie and that entire crew, and Bear, who's not going to be with us, which is a shame, but listening to, and Wiley's in there, and all these people like pitch ideas that are like creative ideas. And it's like, yeah, let's try to get that done. Like, let's do that. Let's do this. And ESPN having access to the people to get that type of stuff done. It was like, it slowly grew on me like, man, it wouldn't be bad to maybe have a little assistance from $1 billion operation that has friends in every building, seemingly. So I think game day certainly led me to believe that a network would help and make life a lot easier and make the show better. But I didn't necessarily go in thinking to myself, like, ESPN is going to be the home because of that. I honestly thought that it wouldn't. And then as the conversation started, it was like, oh, they're real. It feels like they're genuinely looking to do this. And that's because Jimmy and Burke were like, we kind of want to make this happen. So I think ESPN and Game Day certainly opened my eyes about what a network can do and how it can help. But it didn't kind of sway me, if that makes sense. Although I love that I'm with ESPN full time.
I'm not going to ask you again, like, who the other offers were from, but did you have one of the other 4 offers? Was one of them pretty enticing where you had to really decide between that offer and ESPN? And was it, I would assume, let's say Peacock makes you an offer. I'm assuming they want to put you on Big Ten coverage or Sunday Night Football. Or if, CBS is making you an offer, I would assume all these places wanted to put you in other places other than your daily 3-hour show. Am I correct in that one?
Yeah. Every platform has their own entities and properties that they are trying to build up, right? We're in like the streaming era where everybody wants to build attention for whatever they are investing in, because obviously the people that are investing in these things want these to succeed. So how do we amplify these properties that we are investing in? So every place that we went to was looking for us to hopefully boost all their properties. Now, some places that we were talking to don't have many yet, but they are looking to get heavily into things. And it's like, when's that going to be? You got to start judging that out. You got to start judging out, like, if we go to some places, will that take away growth opportunity with our YouTube community that I fucking love? I love our YouTube community. I love what YouTube is. Just like, I like you can profit off it. It feels like if you genuinely put into it, you'll get some stuff out of it. Like that's been our entire show has just been a YouTube show, and we have no connection to Google at all. Like, we just get a paycheck from them every single month from their Google AdSense. We really talk to nobody over there. So it's like, I didn't want to give that up at all. There was some places that didn't want me to continue on YouTube. ESPN, as soon as I brought it, we're like, cool. That's you thing. That'll be part of the deal. We got it. But there were some places that weren't about it, if I say
when you get that check from Google/YouTube every month during the football season, do you cut a little portion of it and send it off to Aaron Rodgers?
So Aaron will maintain with us. You know what I mean? He will. Like, that's the thing about owning. I hope. I mean, we'll see. That guy, he is an anomaly. And obviously he knows every single Taylor Swift song. He had
a good time this weekend.
I hope he continues to have a good time. He had a great time at the Rangers game. He had a great time at the Knicks game. I think he went to a play. I think he had a blast. He's doing his whole thing.
Where do you stand? We'll go right off the beaten path here for a minute. Where do you stand on, because one of his Jets teammates came out and was like, it's weird that you're all filming him while he's dancing and bopping around at the T Swift concert. I kind of think, listen, if you're a public figure, you got to sort of deal with that. Where do you stand on, like, a celebrity getting filmed at a But see, you also, like, I also feel like if someone's at a concert, they shouldn't have to worry about someone filming. Like, at concert, you should be able to be as loose as you want, do whatever you want, but you are a celebrity. Where do we stand on that, Pat?
Yeah. Everybody should be able to do whatever they want. Nobody look at them at all. Everybody should make $1 billion. Like, that's just not reality. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not the real world. And I think the cool thing about us is our operation is I was pretty big in Indiana. Like, I was rather large in Indianapolis before any national media really gave me any opportunity. Nobody really knew who I was. In Indiana, I was pretty big because of an alleged event, that happened in my second year where the cops said I went for a swim. I was just trying to walk home. Certainly $140 fine for a public intoxication. But then I started getting on Twitter and I started explaining to myself to people, like, I'm not an idiot every night of my life. I did have a good time. I apologize. I will no longer embarrass my family. And like the state of Indiana kind of like bought into me heavily. So, and this is as social media is kind of growing. So
well, and yours was a victimless crime. I mean,
certainly. But as I was going out in Indy, like, I don't even know what year it was, but I don't think there's been a day where I've gone outside of my house in Indianapolis where I haven't had somebody take a picture of me. Like, this is way before, this is while I'm still punting balls. This is when I'm doing stand-up shows, selling 10,000 tickets for a stand-up tour in like 5 minutes around Indiana, or selling out like a 6,000 seat venue up in West Lafayette, Indiana, before anybody nationally even has a clue who I am. Like, it's been a long time in my life in Indiana where I haven't been able to go outside without people tracking me, taking pictures of me, or talking to me. So I actually just fully expect it, and I love it. I enjoy talking to people. Like, I love, one of our people will come up and just be like, "What's up, Pat? How you doing?" I'm like, "Cool, keep it moving." I think Aaron's the same way. Aaron knew everybody was going to film him, and Aaron didn't give a fuck. And like, I think that's a cool thing that we've kind of got to the point where and I'm much smaller than Aaron Rodgers. That's fucking New York, and it's Aaron Rodgers. But I'm talking about, like, I was a local, like, face for a long time before I've become like this kind of much bigger face. So I kind of got used to it. Just like I think Aaron has obviously been baptized in this for a long time, where it's just like, yeah, if I have a good time out here and I'm appearing to be tripping balls off of Taylor Swift songs, everybody on earth is going to see it. You know what I mean? He knows that. He knows that.
I wrote this in my column on Tuesday. I give Aaron credit too, because he went 2 nights. She was there 3 nights. He went 2. He didn't do like the celebrity, I'll go 1 night, do like a photo op. He went 2 nights, so that's legit.
Him and Kelly and Miles Teller are like friends with her.
Yeah.
So they went to like a Friends concert that happened to sell 215,000 tickets over the 3 days. That's $100 and some million over 3 days in tickets. What a dog.
3.5 hour show is just off the charts. Off the charts.
It. She's a beast, dude. She's a beast.
Yeah. 3.5 hours, 3 nights in a row, no night off either. I was going to ask you this at the end. I thought if things were going well, I would throw this in at the end, but you mentioned it now. So I'll throw this in now, and then we can get back to sort of the business side of everything. What do you get sick of discussing the most or being asked about more? The arrest that you mentioned, or the infamous fake punt play?
So the fake punt play, obviously, and Rob Ninkovich kind of confirmed this in my Instagram comments. Patriots probably cheated on that play. They probably, this is Rob Ninkovich's fault. I would have never thought that they did, but he showed up in my comments the other day, and it made me just go, you know what? They probably did have some inside information on that. So we'll kind of hang our hat on the fact that, in theory, that was a smart play. Should have never got snapped. Okay. That ball should have never got snapped.
Another Bill Belichick cheating scandal comes your way.
That's what I'm saying. I think we should at least investigate it, at least investigate it, because we sold it so well that we were going off the field. They read that thing so quickly. So that was not going to work from about a half a second into the start of the play. And us still snapping the ball, what a nightmare. And you're right. If you watch that clip, my name is across the bottom. The only name associated with it is P. McAfee right across the bottom. Now, I was averaging 49 yards a punt. Pretty good little start to the game there. Happy that number's there. But that one was tough, especially when other bonehead plays happen and everybody has to immediately go, no, it's not as bad as this play. And then bang.
Oh, I've done that on Twitter a couple of times myself, I must say.
You're a part of the problem, Jimmy. You're a part of the problem.
And what I love about that, the underrated part of that is Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth. Like the complete dumbfoundedness. Al, because Al keeps his voice monotone on that, and that's when Al's really disgusted. So it's an underrated part of the clip.
Yeah, so the fact that it gets recycled, though, I hang my hat on that. The arrest, that thing is kind of coming. There wasn't a time I left my house here in Indiana where somebody didn't scream like, "Let's go for a swim," and I'd be like, allegedly. But I just enjoy when people say what's up. I don't really care about it much.
Yeah. Couple of more things on ESPN. Is the show still going to be 12 to 3 Eastern as it is now?
Yeah. That's I kind of said it, and I guess I was told not to say it, but like, our people need to know that our show isn't changing the time. So we'll have 2 hours on ESPN there, 12 to 2. And then the rest will be on YouTube exclusive ESPN Plus and the ESPN app. So we're getting 10 hours on main ESPN, which is bananas to think about, and an incredible honor. Like, very, very humbled and honored by it. If you go back through the annals of ESPN, all the people that have had microphones on that network through sports media history, it's like us getting 10 hours every week we're pumped for, and then YouTube will be simulcast at the same time and then carry through till 3:30, 4, whatever it ends up being.
I think you get all the fucks out of your system when you're on YouTube.
I'll tell you what, I offered that one up early, and now that it's kind of been, they didn't ask, I offered that up. I was like, you know what? We can slim down the fucks, just because we're going to be introduced to a lot of people on ESPN. Their real estate on linear is incomparable. I said it earlier. They're everywhere. You go to a cafe, you go to a restaurant, you go to airport, you go anywhere, ESPN is on the TV.
Oh, yeah.
So we would like to not necessarily shut the door on somebody because we say one word that they maybe won't even give us a chance to hear what we're talking about. Because I think sometimes the delivery of words kind of can spur some people. I've had that through my experience. And I'm always like, well, if you listen to what I'm saying, though, if you're to read it out, I'm actually giving a pretty good take here. It's pretty well thought out. Probably you might actually agree with, but some people just can't get past the delivery or maybe a word of fuck slipping in there. So I actually offered up like, hey, we will kind of limit the fucks just strictly because I don't want to shut the door on anybody. Right. I don't want them to
also,
feel
that
like
makes it. I think also, I don't know a lot about business, but I would think that whole issue is more about advertisers too than ESPN. I mean, yes, at 12:30 in the afternoon, people make the argument, oh, kids are watching because, kids have never heard the F word or whatever. But it's also, it's really
changed the game. The internet has changed the game completely.
So but it's an advertiser deal too. Advertisers sometimes don't want to be associated with a program if they're saying fuck. So, it happens.
Yeah. We've never had a problem with that, but I do understand what you're saying. I think
for ESPN on linear. Yeah.
Yeah, and then who's the advertisers? Is it the same people that have been with us digital? Right. We have a lot of partners, that are, I don't want to say paying good amount, but I'm very pumped to see the business because Pretty Hands-On still going to remain hands-on like 6 months from now, after 3 months in there, where we're going to be, what it's going to be. We would like to be earners, big time earners everywhere we go. So I'm pretty excited to kind of watch that entire thing as well.
I'm actually not asking this to be funny in any way, shape, or form. This is a legitimate question. You made the statement, we've talked about it, you're not going to say fuck while you're on ESPN. But what about like shit and some of the lesser curse words? Can they fly on ESPN?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. ESPN getting a little risque. I like it.
It's not risque. So the Last Dance, Michael Jordan said fuck like every 4 minutes on true. ESPN primetime. If you do recall. So this wouldn't be the first time, right? But they do understand like casual conversation that takes place in the sports world on the internet might involve a shit or a damn or an ass every once in a while. Right. And like that conversation was a big one about the whole thing because we can't just I can't talk like that for 4 hours, 3.5 hours every single day without saying it. I do apologize. And they were like, well, what ESPN looks like tomorrow doesn't have to be what ESPN looks like today or yesterday. So I think there's a chance it completely backfires and they take so much drawback. I don't think it'll be from advertisers because I don't think any company we've ever got with has ever said like, that's not good. They're fans. They're like loyal fans getting very pissed about us saying that. I hope that because we're going to take it from them too. We're taking it from our people now, about sell out. When we get on there and we say, shit, this guy's an ass, that whole thing, we're going to get it real hard from a whole nother group of people as well, as is ESPN. So I think that'll be certainly something that we're going to have to kind of figure out as we go, but all parties are aligned there.
Do you have it's not difficult to figure this out. You want to be up and running by football season, but do you have a start date, maybe right after Labor Day or not yet?
We do not have a start date yet, announced at least. We don't have a start date yet.
Well, they want you there for football. We know that. The other part of all this is that you're leaving.
I would like to be there for football as well, obviously. Yeah.
Well, like in the sports world, like January 1st is not New Year's for people in the sports world. The sports world, New Year's is the start of the NFL season.
No way anybody thinks in the sports world January 1 is the start. Nobody thinks that, right?
It's the NFL. No. It's that Thursday night.
Dude.
Well, and now, listen, with gamble, you could even say, the fake exhibition game started too. We could go either way.
Football season, though. It'll start around football season. That's a good way to describe it. Yeah, which is
the other part of this equation is that you're leaving FanDuel with a significant amount of time left on the FanDuel deal. Why are you leaving FanDuel?
Yeah, so FanDuel was our exclusive sportsbook partner. So like 5 Hour Energy is our exclusive energy shop partner. SeatGeek is our exclusive ticketing partner. Sportsbook partner was FanDuel. So anytime we talk about a story where it's a long day and we got energy, we did drink 5 Hour Energy. So we talk about 5 Hour Energy. Anytime we go to an event and we need to get tickets or something, we go through SeatGeek. They were our first ever partner. Anytime we're talking about gambling or doing anything like that, it's FanDuel. So a lot of people are like, he's leaving the FanDuel network. It's like, we were never, they were our exclusive sports book for our show, but we weren't a part of the fan. They had no ownership of the show. They weren't licensing the show. They were just our exclusive sportsbook partner. We were very lucky that they were our exclusive sportsbook partner. Absolutely loved the time we had being with FanDuel as our exclusive sportsbook partner. I feel like we had a lot of great times, a lot of incredible people over there, but I really wanted to make my life easier. I was after the Super Bowl, you're speaking of the years ending and how people that don't watch sports have January 1 being it. For us, it's after the Super Bowl. We do a couple shows after the Super Bowl, and then we take 2 weeks off pretty much to kind of just hopefully be humans again. Normally 4 or 5 days into the vacation, still on the phone, not able to check out, still like freaked out about the season. I had to be doing something. And then I kind of get into a relaxing period there with my wife. And this year she was pregnant. So I had to really start thinking about what the future looked like for me, not only as a business person, but as a husband, as a dad, as my day-to-day looks. And whenever you're running your own show and you're booking your own guests and you're selling your own ads and you're building your own stages and you're fixing every single problem that you have with every single part of your business, it can get a little bit taxing. So after watching what happened with Game Day and how they weaponized ESPN, I came to the decision alongside my wife and everybody in here, because all my guys work their asses off, absolutely workhorses in here. I said, you know what? I've made a decision. I want to go to a network. I want to get like a little bit of backing, a little bit of a tag team. I would like to get the back end stuff kind of handled by people that have teams of this type of stuff. Last year, obviously, I get sued by Brett Favre, which I have no lawyers at the time. I'm running my show. So that gets added into the mix of everything else I got going on in my life. I have to do this. I have to write up these. I have to call lawyers. I have to do this whole thing. When I think everybody else that was involved was like, hey, here's your lawyers for this. Boom, we got this taken care of. Kind of take it out of your life. I bought NFL rights for my show. Paid them like millions and millions and millions of dollars so that we can get footage on our program. First company to really ever do that digitally, was able to negotiate incredibly well with the NFL Films people who are incredible over there. Keith Cosrow and team were very nice with us. But then like 6 weeks into it, all of a sudden, we fall into an issue about our graphics and logos and still images. So I have to create the PAFL now, where I am now jousting with an NFL lawyer about what I'm allowed to show, what I'm not allowed to show. All the while booking the show, selling the show, doing everything else. It was like, it became very evident, like, okay, I think we've got to a point where we have proven our value. We have certainly put a dent into this whole space. And now if we find the right partner, it feels like the next step, how we get bigger, how we get better, how our lives get bigger and better, is by joining a network. And that's basically it. So it's like FanDuel might be back doing business with our show again. And if we do business with FanDuel again in the future, I would certainly welcome it. But it's like, I just wanted to go to a network and kind of have them handle all the extracurricular bullshit that I can kind of get out of my life as this beautiful baby girl is here. And we try to survive another football season.
All right. So no bad blood with FanDuel.
No, like not every decision is going to be loved by everybody, but like there was a lot of great things that us and FanDuel got to do together. And they're the number one sports book in America. We've been there since day one. We're very, very pumped about everything that's accomplished over there. It might be doing business again. We have no idea.
I wanted to mention this at the top, and then we got right into it. So I did not say congratulations on your new baby daughter. And I'm listening to you talk about everything you're doing, and you and your wife just had a daughter a few weeks ago. Do you sleep? How much sleep do you get? What is like the Pat McAfee schedule these days?
Yeah, so the wife is an absolute ass kicker. She absolutely is. You hear my voice. We're up with this baby now. You know what I mean? We are up with her, and she is active. She's fussy. She's beautiful. She has like a great personality already. Her farts smell so bad, like so bad. She's like growing, So this entire process has obviously changed my life, having a baby. But I kind of expected it to happen, which is why I wanted to take some stuff off my plate. But whenever you're talking about when you're talking about like football season, and everything else, man, I'm running on like 4 hours a night, 5 hours a night, just trying to get by and trying to survive that whole thing.
Yeah. I'm wiped out from football season, and all I do is like do a once a week podcast and bet every game. So I don't know how regular people like in the NFL do it. It's an exhausting season.
Jimmy, we get to do this. You know what I mean? Like,
I know. Speaking of things you get to do, I have to get into the WWE with you a little bit because I'm a big wrestling guy. Had Stone Cold on this podcast last week. If you want to say what, this is your chance.
Oh, what? Yeah, what? Had a couple Steve Rogers. What? Little whiskey.
He's great. And you were great on SmackDown. And then obviously Game Day came along. And there's two things with you with the WWE. There's obviously an in-ring stuff where you've blown people away, and then there's the SmackDown. I assume SmackDown, like I know you're going to tell me like there's always a chance, but I assume that can't happen now, right? Unfortunately, we done with commentary on SmackDown, unfortunately.
So, myself, Michael Cole, Nick Khan, Kevin Dunn, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Vincent Kennedy McMahon. We all still very much in contact with each other. Two of those men, Nick Khan and Vince, were people that when I had a question about something that was going on through this whole process, very much answered my questions and said, like,
interesting.
Vince gave me a stern do not for one thing that I was thinking about doing because I did not appreciate the way something was kind of laid out by one particular person in a company that I was kind of negotiating with and everything like that. And I wanted to, so I sent like a question, like, hey, am I allowed to say this back? And it took a couple hours.
I was going to say, how long did it take Vince to respond?
It took a couple hours and I got like a do not period. And then it was like, now is not the time or something like that. I'm like, okay, all right, fuck it. The guy's business wise, I will listen to him. And then Nick, same thing. There'll be like another situation because Nick comes from the sports media world, obviously. So Nick like knows pretty much all of these humans that I was kind of talking to and everything like that. So when I would get a chance to like Nick Khan was like a ghost in this thing where I'd be like, hey, how this person, what type of person are they? That type of stuff. He would send me back like boom, 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 bang, pow. Think about this. It's like, thank you. So like my relationship with the WWE is, I don't want to say stronger than it's ever been, but actually stronger than it's ever been. And we are all very much talking about how I get back into the universe because I love it. And we talked about this earlier. I love it. Right. I think I'm good at it. I think I'm supposed to be in there. I understand why people are doing things. I think that's why like commentating was a good spot for me alongside Michael Cole, the greatest of all time. Getting to get stunned by Stone Cold Steve. I lived out like dream after dream after dream over there. I love that place. Our relationship's very strong. So I know you said like, you could say that anything, but actually I think we're working. We're all trying to figure it out.
That's good to hear because I fully expected you to be back there when the college football season ended, and I was disappointed you weren't. I figured once college football and game day wrapped up, you'd be back on SmackDown. And I get maybe the WWE. I know they probably want continuity too. They probably they've got Wade Barrett doing it, and they probably don't want to jerk him around, which I get.
My wife was very, very pregnant. You know what I mean?
Right. That's right.
So it was. So this was my wife and I. We had gotten pregnant 2 times before. It did not work out. So this was our first time going like full term almost. So we had not experienced some of these later months in pregnancy. So the plan was like, hey, after college football, after football, we'll get back in there. And then once, with what the season was like for me, for the wife, for the pregnancy, after that, like with how pregnant she was and everything we were going through first time, it was like all parties were like, all right, all good. So I think we were all expecting that as well. And then the decision was made pretty much like, hey, I'm going to hang out here with the wife and really get through this as we welcome an absolute angel into the world.
And if anyone listening to this has not seen it, I wrote a whole column about this maybe a month or 6 weeks ago. One of your guys, and I apologize because the name is out of my brain right now and I wish I remembered it, but one of you guys put a video together of your WrestleMania experience. And I thought it was one of the best things I've ever seen about, you can't watch that and not think how cool is this for Pat that he loved wrestling so much and then this happened? So that was very cool.
Shout out Zito, just brought me this water, heard my dry voice. But that's Foxy you're talking about. Foxy's Foxy's a video guy. He's incredibly talented in the shots that we got, which is like to another thing about the WWE. I'm like, hey, can my guy film stuff? And they're like, yeah, absolutely, do what you got to do. There's a lot of trust there between us on what we'll put out, what we won't put out, what's seen, what isn't seen. And like, I honestly feel like I'm very lucky and we are very lucky to be a part of the WWE family. And yeah, Foxy's incredibly talented and I'm happy.
It was a great video.
I'm happy I love for the rest of my life.
I love the way it showed how you guys kept the surprise. Drink your water and I'll ask you this question. We talked at the top. You don't love to do a ton of podcasts and a ton of interviews. Another guy who never does any interviews ever is a guy you just mentioned, Vincent Kennedy McMahon. However, he did the Pat McAfee show. Were you nervous for that interview?
No.
That's awesome. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
So I think, so when I was doing SmackDown, I started learning the business a little bit more. And obviously as a fan for my entire life, I kind of understood, I thought about what's going on. But then once you start meeting people and kind of learning about people and about the process of it all, like I'm genuinely a curious person too. So I would actually just go ask Vince questions. Like, hey, why do you guys do it this way? Why do you, whenever you're talking about this decision, why do you do this? And I feel like he's naturally like a teacher. Like, I think if people approach him and ask him questions, he wants to tell people, like, I think he wants to tell people why he did what he did. Now, the way he goes about telling people, we've all seen, certainly an interesting thing. And he has certainly made mistakes as a human. I think he would even recognize that. And we all recognize that. But whenever you're talking about business acumen in American business humans in the history, like one of the best feels for business and what the future looks like. So I just started like asking him questions. And I think he kind of respected the questions that I was asking because a lot of the questions I was asking was for my own business, my own show. He knew about that. I'd ask him stuff about things that we're thinking about doing with partners and sponsors and exclusivities and everything like that. And I think it would like take him back almost to like 20 years ago, 25 years ago. So we like naturally built up a little bit of a conversation almost every single week at SmackDown because I'd be going through a lot with my show. And at the same time, my SmackDown thing is kind of growing. And there are two different silos, like my show, sports, football, wrestling, but kind of similar because they're both shows, a lot of shows. Yes. Entertainment, but like it wasn't a lot of crossover. Like some of our people went over and watched wrestling. Some of the wrestling people came over, but it was certainly two different real worlds that were happening. Yeah. No. So like I just started asking questions about decisions that I would have to make. I think he appreciated it. I think he respected the questions that I was asking. And I think anytime you talk to anybody, and I learned this with Peyton, because I was very lucky to be teammates with Peyton Manning. Like these are humans at the end of the day. So you got to talk to them like they're humans. As soon as you start treating them like they're not humans, they're going to not act like humans. So like if you get showed up in front of somebody, I think they're immediately going to be like kind of shut down, not really talk to you. But if you talk to people like they're humans, I think they appreciate that. And him blessing us with that, I mean, he flew in for that. Flew in, didn't know if it was going to happen. Like there'd been, obviously it was reported, it was talked about. Day of though, didn't get it before we went live, did not get like a confirmation. And I'm like, I just assume he's coming. And then we get like a text. It's like, hey, 30 minutes out. And it's like, okay, the bird is in the sky. And then it's like 15 minutes out. And then like the Eagles landed on the way over there. He plane, SUV, right to office, all by himself, no security, walks right in, sits down, does hour 15, hour and a half, comes out, takes a picture, says thank you to everybody, back in, back on plane, back home, probably had another 12-hour day after that. So it was, I was pumped for it more so than nervous. I was like, I knew that he doesn't talk to a lot of people. I, being a wrestling fan long time, have obviously followed this guy's kind of trajectory business-wise and everything else. So I felt pumped for the opportunity, for sure.
And it was a great interview. And you do the interviews with Aaron Rodgers that make news every week. And I'm just curious because when I watch your show, you have multiple guests on, and I don't ever see you with notes, looking at a note. I'm just curious what your prep is when you're doing an interview. And do you have different kind of, if you have, Ian Rappaport on, you're going to go through like some, NFL news, but then that's different than interviewing Vince McMahon, Rodgers. Do you have different prep for interviews? Like how does Pat McAfee get ready for an interview?
So I just live on my phone pretty much. You can ask my wife. I mean, it is just, I need to know and try to know pretty much everything that's going on, and that's a hard thing to do. But like, I need to know like everything that's going on with everybody pretty much, especially if they're going to be coming on the show. So that's why I like Twitter so much. I have a good group that I follow, and I'm able to kind of keep up with every story happening almost everywhere, because I want to know what pisses everybody off too. I would like to not do that. So like, I want to know what is pissing people off. I want to know what people are interested. I want to know what rules are changing, how like the diehard purists are like, I'm just trying to gain as much information as possible all the time. Like that is, I love news. I love learning. I love digesting information and content. I'm just doing it all day, every day. And then I feel like I'm a natural conversationalist. I'm genuinely curious, but I don't have a set direction in which every conversation is going to go. It's like when we get in there, I feel like my life prepping for that moment is there. And then if they bring something up that spurs a thought, boom, let's take this one a little bit. But I'll miss some things that need to be talked about with people. And then the boys will kind of pick up hey, this thing just happened last week. Do you have a thought on that? Because my conversation that I had with the person it just didn't come up in the particular convo. So I'm always just trying to have a conversation with people, and wherever it goes, it goes. And if we miss something, hopefully the boys will be able to pick it up, which they do an incredible job of.
Who haven't you had on yet that you'd like to have on for an interview?
Oh, Roger Goodell. I'd like to have Roger Goodell on. I'd like to sit down.
Besides the new punting rule, what would you want to ask Roger?
Well, it's a kickoff rule, but there's a lot, Jimmy. I mean, you're talking about great business people, he
knows how to make money. That's for sure.
Dude, his legacy is one that brought the NFL to be the most dominant league in the history of any league, especially in a time where it seems like interest and attention spans are lowering. Their watch long time and viewers and hours logged and interest year round is just more than it's ever been. So I have questions, obviously, about some of the decisions that he has made that I feel were terrible. But I also have a lot of questions about how did we get to all these spots? What's next? Was there any drawback from any owners on any of the decisions that you've made that have ended up working out? And did you dunk on their face in the 1 per 32, 1 per club meetings? Like all that type of stuff I'm very intrigued by, because he's been the guy who's been guiding the ship through the most treacherous times, but also most profitable times. So that's certainly a human I would enjoy kind of having a conversation with. And I think it'll happen someday.
Yeah. He showed up for the Jason and Travis Kelce live show, so you should certainly do your show.
Made a script joke.
I couldn't believe that. I could not believe that when I saw it. It was great too. It was very good. It was very good. Have you had Tom Brady on? Yeah.
He did that Jim Gray show, right? Remember?
Well, that's his own show he does every week.
Yeah, we didn't hear anything from it. We were very bummed by that, actually. Very, very bummed. I thought that was going to be like every Monday, we were going to get a bunch of Tom stuff. And then Aaron's, like two of the Mount Rushmore quarterbacks are talking all through a season. Like, that's great for us as sports fans. Like, that's why, I enjoy Aaron Rodgers Tuesday. I have so much fun going in there because we're learning about, one of the most interesting humans of all time, Aaron Rodgers. Also, one of the most talented players in the history of a sport that is the most dominant sport of all time. So it's every week we learn something. It's okay, so this is how one of the best ever can look and act and do. I enjoy that part of our conversations because he's definitely somebody that breaks the mold. The Monday thing, we didn't really hear much out of it. And I was so bummed about it, but Tom Brady would certainly be on a list of people we would love to have on here and chat about, because what he has accomplished and his commitment to the game and the league, so honorable, so admirable. And I'm sure we'd be able to get some conversation nuggets out of there, I would hope.
I've seen some people criticize some of the Aaron Rodgers interviews because they want you to maybe press him a little more. What's your response to that?
Yeah. So when you're talking to a guy who had a 500-page report done, okay, on his decision, which is what Aaron did. He had a 500-page report about why he made the decision he had, and he started laying it out about it. And I believe you're talking about the vaccination thing. It's
no. I'm talking about. I wasn't talking about one specific thing. I'm talking about.
But that's whether. That's when it was the loudest. That was certainly when it was the absolute loudest.
Well, that makes sense because
I was being called a murderer. I was being called a murderer by people. I was being in like a foreign language on a foreign tabloid. Like I was out of shape stooge in tank top, also allowing platform that could potentially kill thousands of people. I'm like, whoa. I'm just trying to introduce people to how the MVP of the NFL is thinking. And I think
I wasn't even referencing that. It's just even in the beginning of this year when he was deciding what to do and the darkness and going to the Jets, like even, I always see things about like, he just has this open forum to say what he wants and there's no pushback, no matter what the topic is. Does that bother you at all?
No, yeah, because I think a lot of people that have gotten into like sports media, they think they're more impressive or important than the people that are on the field doing it. And I live by like hey, we're learning about the greatest right now. Like we're learning about the greats. So like that is also a form of media. Like I didn't go to Syracuse. I wasn't allowed in the broadcast boot camp like 3 times. I got turned down by the NFL's broadcast boot camp. But
why did they turn you? Did they give you a reason why they would? Like how can they be allowed to turn you down?
There's only a certain amount of spots. You know what I mean? There's only a certain amount of spots. Maybe try next year.
That sounds like bullshit to me.
You don't say. Yeah, I'm very honored that I am the only person though in the history, I think, of the NFL that has basically got on TV in significant times that has not gone through the broadcast boot camp, which is every president of every network getting to see you do absolutely everything. Quite an advantage. Great setup. Love that the broadcast boot camp happens. I was not able to get in there, but there's also a form of journalism about like learning about people and their thoughts. Not every single person that is in the media needs to know the answers to things that aren't in their world. So like, I know you're talking about him talking about going into the darkness, but you're certainly also chatting about the vaccination stuff and everything like that. It's like, who the fuck am I to tell Aaron Rodgers that what he believes with the 500-page report, and then also with his football ability, I'm supposed to tell him that he's wrong? There are a lot of things that he has said that I like don't make sense to me, and certainly are like, oh, I don't know why you do that. But this is Aaron Rodgers that I'm interviewing, and it's his conversation. It's not mine. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I view everything. And hopefully, the more we learn about these people, the more we can learn about sports as a whole.
Yeah. I've kept you an hour. I think when we set this up, I told you 40 minutes. So I appreciate the extra time.
Yeah,
we didn't even get into. Yeah, so I want to let you go because we didn't even get into College Game Day, which I had questions about. I had a bunch of other stuff. So as long as you tell me you'll come on again, maybe in a few months, I'll let you go now.
I don't do any pods, but I am going to go. I'm not your puppy. You're not going to let me go. But
can we make that deal? Can we make that deal? Because I really did want to get into some College Game Day stuff, and because you fit in so great on that this year, and.
So not everybody felt that way, but the
I didn't see that. I didn't see any negative reaction to that.
The old whites, Jimmy, old whites did not like me on there. Now, not all older white people, right? But there's a section of older white people that I refer to as the old whites. Right. Boy, they hate new guy, loud, tank top, chain. They hated everything about it. But I think as the season went on, I won them over. And the reason why I won him over is because the crew that I was up there with was so incredibly kind to me. All the boys and everybody that's a part of that show was so nice to me. I loved every second of it. It was exhausting. It was very tiring because I don't really have a day off now because of it. But right. I absolutely love that show and am very lucky to be a part of it.
What I wanted to ask you about Game Day was everybody knows it's a legendary show. It's part of Americana. I mean, it's just one of those... it's one of those things that you can't really explain with words. It's just like if it's Saturday morning, it's on, you feel good about it. You have Corso in the background. Herb Street knows what he's doing. Like, it's just part of the college football life. But doing it, getting the chance to do it, were you ever even surprised by how big it is and how iconic it is?
So in 2019, before COVID, I got to do a few of them because Adam Vinatieri was supposed to do it in South Dakota State. He was not available. They sent me over there. I cut a couple promos, had a good time. They invited me back to the next few. And then COVID happens, and I was kind of going in from my studio, kind of dropping in, dropping out. And one of the times, I forget what it was, I was live from my studio. They were on location. I did something, and I got a message from somebody that was working in President Obama's office. So he has an office in Chicago. And the message was, President Obama wanted me to let you know that he enjoyed what you just did on College Game Day or something like that. And I was like, oh shit. Like, okay, so President Obama's not watching our YouTube show. You know what I mean? Like that is, so like it was in 2020, I think, when I realized like, hey, this is a completely different animal, and it is an institution, to your point. And the people that have worked there have been there basically since it started. I mean, there's a lot of history in that room whenever I go in there, and they were all incredibly kind to me. And I'm very, very grateful for that. And lucky
I had
to be
no idea about that Obama story. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was. I literally read it and was like, this is a joke. I said, this isn't real. And then I had to get it checked by somebody else. Like, yeah, that it was. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, President Obama has no idea I exist on YouTube. So Game Day's a little bit different. I think Game Day's a little bit different.
He might know you exist. He seems kind of like up on the top. You know, I bet he's like a bit, like he probably knows about technology and what's going on out there.
Yeah, I'm betting he had
I would
no
be
idea.
shocked.
Jimmy, I'm thinking he had no idea who I was. Yeah, I'm thinking no clue. Yeah.
Oh, I bet you he's a big sports fan. I bet he knew.
Yeah, there's a lot of big time sports fans that have ESPN on all time. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, which is why we're pumped to take the program even to ESPN. I think we're going to get introduced to a lot of new humans, and hopefully they'll hang out with us every afternoon, you know?
I'm just thinking about it because I really don't remember seeing any negativity towards you with Game Day. But then there was something where you did, it was one of the, I don't know if it was the national title game or one of the bowl games. You were doing it from the sidelines. Something happened there. I remember people being pissed about. What was that?
I don't remember anybody being mad. I don't remember anybody for being mad. I actually don't remember anybody mad about the simulcast. ESPN 2. I don't remember any of that.
You must have said something that the old whites didn't like.
Well, that happens every day. That's going to happen when we go to ESPN. Like, I know it's coming. It's going to be live.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's coming. It's coming. I'm a big, you mentioned Sirius. I'm a big Mad Dog fan because I grew up in New York and I listened to him for 30 years. And he started this gig on First Take a year and a half ago. And I knew when the national audience gets wind of him, people are not, and I see on Twitter, people like, get him off. He's the worst. And like, now he's an acquired taste, which I guess maybe you'd be an acquired taste too, but
definitely not a kinda, definitely.
And he has said a million times, Russo's been in the business for like 40 years. And he said a million times, he never, ever understood the power of ESPN until he started doing that show and he saw what the reaction has been.
Every TV in America it's on. Like, obviously there's people watching other stuff, but if you walk in public and peek your head into a restaurant or into a bar or a store or anything, it's like ESPN, 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 ESPN. It's crazy. And they're going to see a dude in a tank top on there. So that's good. We're lucky, thankful, and I'm appreciative of you inviting me on here, pal.
My pleasure. I can't thank you enough for doing this, especially giving me all this time. I know you're super busy, and I think the ESPN thing will work out just fine. I wouldn't worry about it, and everyone else should calm down. And thank you. Any time off between now and the football season? Any time off for Pat McAfee?
Yeah, I think we're going to take a break. We got to do some stuff to the studio, you know, that was going to happen regardless. But now that we're making the move to ESPN, like we have all 4K cameras in here, all of them, every one of them is 4K. Whenever we built this, don't need 4K for linear yet. So we actually have to change. We actually have to change some stuff on the back end.
You have to downgrade.
It's an interesting thing that we could have never expected. But a lot of the upgrades and things that we had to add that we were planning on adding in the off season, there's been a couple additions now with the ESPN thing. So we'll take some time off to kind of do that. And then we'll gear up for a football season. We can't wait.
Yep. Same here. I appreciate you doing this. Good luck. Enjoy some time off. Enjoy your baby girl. And can't thank you enough for giving me all the time. Appreciate it. All right. My thanks to Pat McAfee. tremendous interview. He was fantastic. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did and you're not a subscriber to SI Media with Jimmy Traina, hit the subscribe button. If you enjoyed the interview, leave a review on Apple as well. Subscribe, rate, and review. Very important. And if you've missed any recent episodes of the pod, go check them out in the archive. Stone Cold Steve Austin and Richard Deitch were on last week. NFL VP of Broadcast Planning Mike North, who put together the 2023 schedule, along with Dan Rappaport of Barstool's Foreplay, were on the pod 2 weeks ago. Mike Breen 3 weeks ago. Ian Rappaport, Rich Eisen on the pod in recent weeks as well. So check those out. If you missed any of them, subscribe to SI Media with Jimmy Traina and rate and review. All right. Appreciate you guys listening. Hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you next week right here on SI Media with Jimmy Traina. Stay safe and take care.